A Hat in Time came out a year ago today. More unbelievably though, it was more than 5 years ago I gave money to its Kickstarter. It was a hell of a long time coming, and it released to generally pretty high praise overall, to the niche it set out to fulfill. In honor of A Hat in Time's anniversary, I wanted to finally make my video about it as a whole, and more specifically on one aspect that I think didn't get nearly enough acknowledgement. Boss fights. I unabashedly love this game. I could gush about it all day, but they just released new DLC, so we don't got time for that. Before I go into specifics of why I find A Hat in Time's boss fights so spectacular, I want to quickly go over a few other selling points of this wonderful game that you've probably heard before. First, the movement mechanics are rock solid. Ask anybody who is a connoisseur of the collectathon platformer, and the first thing they'll tell you that is imperative is a good, fluid movement system. This is a pretty basic concept, but if it isn't fun or engaging to move around, explore, and do platforming in your platformer, then, well, must I go on? Needless to say, Gears for Breakfast nails it. While it may not have the depth of Nintendo's Odyssey, moving around in this game is smooth as butter. And with the multitude of hats, it still offers a pretty nice variety of gameplay options, even though not all of them are as expansive or consistently useful as one would like. I'll expand on this a bit, but for now, all we need to understand is running, jumping, climbing, and dashing feels oh so good. Second, it oozes that classic whimsical charm of a bygone era. No matter where you look, it's undeniable that this game is covered head to toe in the cute and charming.
What's going on here? Oh my god, she's adorable. We're on a secret mission, and she's out here posing like a secret agent, cause she has her little finger hair and they're like a gun. I love this character. I love this character and everything that this game does.
Thirdly, the music. Oh, the music. While I admit the OST probably isn't winning any awards overall, what it does do is be entirely competent everywhere it needed to be, and freaking exceptional in a few key places, which we'll get to later. Some I can highlight now though is the adorably memorable main theme song that I will happily hum along to years from this day when we get A Hat in Time 3, The Revenge of the Last Dash. And also the beautifully enchanting riff music. That's enough of the goddamn potatoes. Where's the meat? I promise boss fights, and by God, I'm gonna do battle and stuff. To preface this, I'm gonna be looking at my favorite boss fight from the game through the lens of a couple articles on boss fight design. Mainly this one from Gamasutra, written by Mike Stout, and sparingly this one from Goomba Stomp, written by Matthew Dawson, as I find it's easier to sort it all out using these resources. Mike begins the Gamasutra article with looking at boss fights basics. First, the boss is a test, a skill check as it were, a chance to demonstrate the mastery of the game mechanics you've gained thus far. Second, the boss is a story, where he breaks down a boss fight into individual story beats, in effect for a strong narrative and pacing, which is where we dive into next. I'm going to take the fight with the Snatcher from the end of the Subcom Forest through these beats in effort to explain why I freaking love it. Beat 1, the build-up. He talks about the need for the boss itself needing the expectations of danger, power, and awesomeness bestowed upon them in some manner before the actual fight occurs. This one's pretty easy because the whole chapter of the Subcon Forest is an excuse to empower the Snatcher in our heads. His goofy yet menacing design, the fact that he makes the contracts and subsequently the rules, demonstrates he has all the power in this world. And the fact that you can't escape from his grasp after he takes your soul until the very end, all pretty well establishes this guy as a formidable foe. Beat 2 Introductions. According to Mike, we want a boss fight to start off with a memorable bang. For the Snatcher, it's fittingly done with him speaking to you from the ether right before you grab a timepiece, again emphasizing his ominous strength. And with a resounding screw you to Hat Kid when he chucks the goofy persona to proclaim that he has no more use for her alive. Also to how he subverts the game design as a whole is what makes him especially memorable, but we'll get to that. Which, let me say, this all only works so well because they created such a great character with the Snatcher. Like I said, whether it comes to the character design, the voice actor, or the writing, he's the perfect combination of goofy charm and diabolical menace. Beat 3 through 6 we're gonna tackle together. Business as usual, as he refers to it, is the beginning to any fight where we get to see the most basic attacks in the boss's arsenal and begins to learn his patterns. The escalation, where the intensity climbs as we get new attacks and complications. The midpoint, where we get a breather and the stakes get raised via some sort of false event or transformation. And it's on. The intensity is jacked to 11, so you and the boss can go wild. For the Snatcher fight, these are condensed into 3 beats, with the escalation and it's on merging into one. This is the main section I want to focus on, the intensity spike. As you progress through the majority of A Hat in Time, the intensity is relatively low, as with all games typically found in this genre. The goal of a collectathon platformer is to let the player have fun exploring the world at their own pace, after all. And with the solid movement mechanics in place, you can have a blast for hours just hopping around Mafia Town collecting every single ball of yarn. It's a cute and relaxing game, until the boss fights. Now suddenly we get a spike in intensity like no other. Not to the point of absurdity, but to where your eyes slowly widen and your heart beats just a little faster as you grip the controller in anticipation for the upcoming challenge. This is also one of the reasons I love Ori and the Blind Forest so much. Because for that game, its version of a boss fight was this insane ramp and tension as you use your platforming abilities to escape a flooding tree, a fractured ruins, a burning volcano, and a treacherous bird. Both in Ori and A Hat in Time, the emphasis is on 2 things. Suddenly ramping the intensity from calm and peaceful to dramatic and exciting, and using the simple mechanics you've learned along the way in interesting and challenging ways. So you enter the fight business as usual. The Snatcher is unhittable, declaring himself so, and begins the basic onslaught, until one of the blue vials he's attacking you with remains. And once you throw it at him, in comes the midpoint. We get a breather and a chance to realize what they just did. Taking a concept inherent to the video game itself that normally you wouldn't think about, that being the hit indicator, which you've likely noticed up till now because you've already fought 2 other bosses, and playing with the concept itself to demonstrate just how unique a boss this guy is. So he starts off the fight by flaunting that he is so powerful that he subverts the game's own mechanics, which is brilliant in its own right, but then for that puzzle to be solved in such a simple, elegant, silly, charming way is just another home run in game design. So as you're recovering your shattered skull fragments off the ground, then begins the 3rd combined stage. We escalate because you better believe it's on. Again, adhering to the blood pumping speed and pacing that counterbalances the rest of the game perfectly, creating more challenge by increasing the speed and the inventiveness of his attacks, making you again build upon and improve from the skills you have gained thus far. Finding that symbiotic balance is not easy, but just like Ori, A Hat in Time does it beautifully. Now, one thing I know you're yelling at your screens right now if you've played this game, and particularly this boss fight, is what about the music? I am so glad you asked. Outside of the rest of the soundtrack, what the composer Pascal Michael Stiefel has done with boss music is phenomenal. I love every single track, and I think they all fit the theme of intensity ramping that makes each fight so memorable. I want to highlight what is clearly the best track of all the boss fights and the entire OST. Because while the other boss jams can feel a little less dynamic at times and has just a tad bit of the noise soup syndrome, Your Contract Has Expired is one of the greatest pieces of gaming soundtrack of all time. Is there any objective truth to that? I don't know, I'm not a musician. It's just fucking dope, alright? The way it begins with a hard, intense rock motif, as all the boss fights do, is simple enough. And as we are beginning the fight against the Snatcher, it's a strong introduction to go along with us getting used to the heightened pace and the new challenge. Until it transitions a minute into the single greatest drop, breakdown, whatever you want to call it, of all time. Fun fact is that during the boss fight, this transition tends to happen about the time you get your bearings for the fight and the blue vial gets dropped to signal a change in the tide of battle. A way I like to think of this song conceptually is similar to how people broke down You Say Run from My Hero Academia. With its specific section that tends to signal the hero's entrance or the turning of the tides of battle, when I hear this song, I hear the rock guitar as the Snatcher. Loud, powerful, oppressive, solitary, unwavering. Until a minute in when we get the light that brings the song into a brighter tone than any other boss fight track. The light, of course, being Hat Kid, entering the fight to challenge the darkness, bringing as much hope as that freaking melody places in my soul. Then throughout the whole song, the two sounds, Hat Kid's chiptune melody and the Snatcher's guitar riffs, battle for supremacy, until it ends with what sounds, to me at least, like the screams of defeat. Just listen to the full song, you fools. Now! Link in the description. And as Matthew Dawson puts it, an amazing soundtrack can even sometimes make a dull boss great. Another thing Dawson writes about is the importance of location. This may be the Snatcher's weakest aspect, because while it is distinctively his style, as is the entire Subcom forest leading up to that, its area is reused verbatim from a previous boss fight against an angry toilet. Yeah, you heard me right. Just play the game already. But what the Snatcher lacks, the others make up for in spades. With the Mafia boss's theatrical stage, the Bird's movie theater, and the throne room / ethereal plane, or whatever the heck that place is called. Finally, the boss is defeated, and we move on to the final two beats of Mike's paper. Beat 7, the kill sequence, to bask in our achievement. While this isn't unique to him, you hear it at the end of every boss, there is a satisfying guitar riff to take us home. And beat 8, the victory sequence, where we get to rub the salt into the boss's wounds and explicitly reward the player. And after the Snatcher, we get the best, most adorable version of that you could possibly imagine. As he pleads with Hat Kid to leave, he gives back her soul and tries to force her to sign a contract to get out. Instead, we get our soul, a timepiece, and the cutest rewritten contract ever seen. Yes, that is how contracts work, Mr. Snatcher. So overall, when you look at the boss fights through Mike's beats, Gears for Breakfast nails the script. It hits each beat with its own unique flair that plays into a Hat in Time's unequivocal charm. What they excel at the most, however, other than their charm, is their commitment to the duality of pacing between normal explorative gameplay and frantic, edge-of-your-seat boss fights. They created an impeccable balance that left me beaming from ear to ear every time I began an encounter. Alongside its stellar soundtrack, where the track Your Contract Has Expired that we talked about is still something I come back to for a blast of energy and excitement. And just because I chose to focus on a single fight doesn't detract from the rest of the game. Every fight was fun and fresh and fantastic. The mafia boss, the conductor, the evil toilet, and mustache girl, all hilarious and excellent in their own right, oozing with style. And so I declare, A Hat in Time has some bomb-ass boss fights. Hey, my name's Sean, and the name Group Therapy is no accident. I want this to be a sort of communal thing, so hit me up in the comments with anything you got about the video, the game, the soundtrack, or whatever. Let's talk it out. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.